Introduction. Welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into the wild world of Animal House, the legendary 1978 comedy that redefined university life on the big screen. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just discovering this classic, get ready to learn some mind-blowing facts about the making of the film that you probably never knew. From behind-the-scenes drama to juicy tidbits, we've got all the details that will make you see the film in a whole new light. So put on your toga and let's get chugging through one. The surprisingly complex foundation before the iconic comedy we know, Harold Ramis wrote 2 rejected scripts. The first one, freshman year, shared Animal House's college setting but lacked its wild humor. Drawing from Ramis's personal experiences, it was a more earnest exploration of early 1960s campus life. When this didn't fit the National Lampoon mold, Ramis and Doug Kenney crafted the over-the-top laser orgy girls, featuring a teenage Charles Manson and alien encounters. This was dismissed because it was too extreme. It was only after both attempts were rejected that the trio of Ramis, Kenney, and Chris Miller merged elements from these scripts into the comedic masterpiece we recognize as Animal House. 2. Chris Miller's Extreme College Tales. Chris Miller's personal experiences as a fraternity member at Dartmouth College provided the raw, unapologetic backbone for much of Animal House's storyline. Many of his tales were considered so outrageous, often involving intense hazing rituals, crude pranks, and near-slapstick moments of degradation, that they had to be toned down to fit even the film's already rowdy tone. When fans learned that these scenes were partially drawn from real life, they were both shocked and fascinated, sparking countless discussions on college campuses and in the media about how close the film came to reality. Magazines and newspapers of the time capitalized on this revelation, interviewing Miller and the rest of the writing team to uncover more scandalous details behind the fictional Delta House. While some viewers felt that depicting such extremities risked glamorizing bad behavior, others found it refreshingly honest, arguing that it unveiled the hidden antics of fraternity culture. In many ways, Miller's involvement became a key selling point. Audiences couldn't resist a comedy that was wild, hilarious, and surprisingly rooted in truth. 3. Landis's rewrite and Pinto's origin. Director John Landis was originally hired to supervise a rewrite of the script, which initially had only one fraternity of pigs, as Landis put it. He added another so there could be good guys and bad guys. Chris Miller's real fraternity pledge name was written into the film. His name was Pinto, just like Thomas Hulse's character in the movie. 4. Casting unknowns over SNL stars. John Landis's decision to bypass well-known Saturday Night Live comedians in favor of relatively unknown actors was initially met with skepticism, even disbelief, by some fans and industry insiders. Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, Brian Doyle Murray, and Dan Aykroyd were all hot comedic names at the time, and many assumed their inclusion would guarantee a box office hit. However, Landis wanted a fresh, authentic feel that wouldn't be overshadowed by the SNL brand, and he believed that casting lesser-known faces would keep the focus on the story's college mayhem rather than celebrity cameos. In retrospect, this gamble paid off in spades. Viewers who expected a star-studded SNL reunion were instead treated to a cast that felt instantly believable as rowdy undergrads. Many fans found the ensemble's chemistry surprisingly genuine, and the lack of big names contributed to the film's freewheeling atmosphere. The only major exception was John Belushi, whose magnetic energy and off-the-wall comedic style became a massive draw. Despite earning the highest paycheck at $440,000, even Belushi never overshadowed his castmates. Critics and audiences alike praised the overall group dynamic that made Animal House a cultural phenomenon. After the film's release, fans flooded magazines and local papers with letters and reviews applauding the authenticity of the lesser-known actors, citing how their unfamiliar faces helped them lose themselves in the story. Many also noted that Belushi, even as the sole marquee name, delivered exactly the kind of larger-than-life performance they'd hoped for, blending his SNL reputation seamlessly into the film's chaotic narrative. Ultimately, what might have seemed like a risky casting choice turned Animal House into a movie brimming with fresh comedic talent, actors who would go on to win over audiences far beyond their original frat house roles. 5. Launching 2 major careers. The film served as a launch pad for 2 notable careers. Kevin Bacon made his acting debut, while John Belushi, known primarily for Saturday Night Live, showcased his comedic talents on the big screen for the first time. Balancing film and television commitments, Belushi filmed Animal House during the week and returned to New York for Saturday Night Live on weekends. 6. Kevin Bacon's premiere snafu. Kevin Bacon wasn't even allowed to sit with the rest of the cast at the premiere. Unfortunately, when Bacon arrived, he had the wrong ticket, and the ushers didn't believe he was in the film. Because of this, Bacon had to sit right at the back of the cinema with regular moviegoers while the cast and crew watched the film together. 7. The Jack Daniels scene reveal. One of the film's most iconic scenes features John Belushi downing a whole bottle of Jack Daniels in seconds while all their belongings are being moved out of their fraternity house. Despite Belushi's well-known partying reputation, the bottle was actually filled with iced tea. 8. Otis Day's real-life transformation. The unforgettable Otis Day featured in the film was brought to life by actor Dwayne Jesse. The film's popularity had a profound impact on Jesse, who legally changed his name to Otis Day and subsequently formed a real-life band bearing the same name. Otis Day and the Knights went on tours, recorded an album during the 1980s, and continued entertaining fans for years. 9. The short-lived Delta House series. The Animal House legacy extended to the small screen with the short-lived series Delta House. Despite featuring the original talent behind Dean Wormer, Flounder, D-Day, and Hoover, as well as introducing a young Michelle Pfeiffer as the bombshell, the show was cancelled after just 3 months. 10. Stephen Furst's Pizza Box resumed. Stephen Furst, best known for his role as Kent Flounder Dorfman, employed a unique strategy to break into Hollywood. While working as a pizza delivery driver, he attached his resume to the lids of pizza boxes delivered to celebrities, a rather unconventional method of networking. This persistence paid off, landing him the role in Animal House. 11. A real fraternity brawl. The cast went to a real fraternity party at the University of Oregon before they began shooting. Unfortunately, their presence was unwelcome. Tensions escalated when cast member James Widows purposefully pushed a guy's beer into his face, sparking a brawl. The cast found themselves getting beaten up by the frat boys, with Bruce McGill sustaining a black eye and Widows suffering a chipped tooth. Ironically, this real-life altercation served to strengthen the cast's camaraderie. 12. Controversial Roadhouse scene. The Roadhouse scene in Animal House stands out as one of the film's most daring comedic moments, largely because it almost never saw the light of day. In this sequence, the Delta fraternity members unknowingly stumble into what is primarily an African-American nightclub, an audacious plot point that caused Universal Pictures president Ned Tannen to worry about sparking racial unrest. At the time, tensions around racial issues were still running high in much of the country, and having a group of rowdy white fraternity boys burst into a black roadhouse could easily have been perceived as offensive or inflammatory. Nevertheless, director John Landis believed strongly in the comedic integrity of the scene. He felt it was essential not only for the film's irreverent style but also to reflect the kind of unpredictable social collisions that truly defined the early 1960s college experience. To reassure studio executives, Landis sought the opinion of comedy legend Richard Pryor, who watched the scene in a private screening. Pryor famously scribbled a note to Tannen saying, "Ned, Animal House is fing funny, and white people are crazy," effectively vouching for its comedic merit. Beyond the controversy, the scene also holds a deeper layer of cultural commentary. The Delta boys, ignorant of the racial undertones of their sudden intrusion, become hilariously out of their depth. Their awkwardness and fear heighten the comedic tension, while the African-American patrons remain cool and collected, unintentionally subverting many of the era's stereotypes. Adding to the authenticity, the band on stage, led by Otis Day, played by Dwayne Jesse, helps underscore the liveliness and flavor of the nightclub environment, contrasting sharply with the Delta's clueless presence. On set, the cast and crew were reportedly cautious about striking a balance between humor and respect, ensuring the scene didn't devolve into mere caricature. In the end, it became a memorable highlight of the film, proving that provocative comedy can be handled with a certain tact, especially when supported by insightful voices like Pryor's, and still bring the house down with laughter. 13. Belushi's improvised cafeteria chaos. John Belushi's cafeteria scene was a masterclass in improvisation. Landis captured a raw, unfiltered performance as Belushi transformed into a ravenous, food-obsessed beast. The infamous, "I'm a zit" line was another spur-of-the-moment comedic gem. Interestingly, Landis himself was initially slated for a cameo in this chaotic scene as a cafeteria worker trying to stop Bluto, but this footage was ultimately cut. The deleted scene would have shown Bluto physically overpower Landis, delivering the line, "You don't F with the Eagles unless you know how to fly." 14. Screenwriters on-screen cameos. 2 of the 3 screenwriters made appearances in the film. Douglas Kenney portrayed Stork, while Chris Miller took on the role of Hardbar. Harold Ramis, the third writer, had envisioned himself playing the character of Boon but was deemed too old for the part by John Landis, which made him extremely angry with the director. 15. The search for a willing campus. Securing a college campus for Animal House proved challenging. Many institutions declined after reading the script. The University of Oregon, however, offered a lifeline. Its dean, regretful for having previously rejected the filming of The Graduate at another school, was eager to capitalize on a Hollywood opportunity and granted the production permission. He even let them shoot in his actual office with the horse. 16. A record-breaking box office triumph. When Animal House hit theaters in 1978, almost nobody expected a film made on a slim $3 million budget to change the landscape of comedy forever. Yet, that's precisely what happened. Audiences were drawn in by the movie's irreverent humor, outrageous fraternity hijinks, and larger-than-life characters, leading to a massive box office return of over $141 million in its original run, an unheard-of figure for a comedy at the time. Adjusted for inflation, that's close to $680 million in today's money, cementing Animal House as not just a modest success, but an outright cultural phenomenon. A big part of its triumph lay in the film's knack for striking a chord with younger viewers who were hungry for a new brand of raunchy, rebellious humor. The marketing campaign leaned heavily on the National Lampoon connection, promising fans the same satirical edge they loved in the magazine but on the big screen. Word of mouth then kicked in almost immediately. College students, in particular, connected with the wild parties, the anti-authoritarian pranks, and the colorful cast of characters that felt ripped right from their own campuses. Some theaters reported lines wrapping around the block, even on weeknights, as people came back multiple times, quoting favorite lines and bringing friends along for the ride. Critics, meanwhile, were split. Some dismissed it as crude and juvenile, while others praised its sheer audacity and razor-sharp comedic timing. Regardless of the mixed reviews, the film's earnings kept climbing, fueled by the sort of buzz that money can't buy. Media outlets soon caught wind of this unexpected success story, running features on how a little comedy that poked fun at collegiate life managed to outgross many big-name blockbusters of the era. Within months, Animal House had entered the pop culture lexicon. Students were throwing toga parties in its honor. T-shirts emblazoned with college, like Bluto's iconic sweatshirt, became a must-have item, and phrases like food fight seeped into everyday conversation. Beyond the impressive numbers, Animal House's record-breaking run paved the way for future comedies to push the envelope. Studios realized that there was a huge market for films willing to blend relatable everyday settings, like a college campus, with wildly exaggerated, no-holds-barred humor. As a result, you could argue that this single production transformed the entire comedy genre, inspiring everything from the teen party movies of the 1980s to modern-day fraternity comedies. Its influence is still felt whenever a film dares to be a little too rowdy or a little too honest about the chaotic side of college life. In short, Animal House didn't just break box office records, it made comedic history, turning a small investment into a cultural juggernaut that continues to resonate with new generations of fans. 17. Donald Sutherland's missed millions. Universal Studios only greenlit the movie because Donald Sutherland, who was a recognizable star, signed on to appear as Professor Jennings. He was notably skeptical about the film's box office potential. So convinced of its failure, he opted for a guaranteed upfront payment rather than a potentially lucrative share of the film's profits. Little did he know he was turning down a much larger payday. Sutherland had been offered 2% of the film's gross earnings, a deal that would have netted him millions given the movie's eventual blockbuster status. 18. Karen Allen's nerves and Sutherland's gesture. Karen Allen, a newcomer to the film industry, felt apprehensive about a nude scene. To ease her discomfort, Donald Sutherland jokingly offered to reveal his own backside. Little did he know this light-hearted gesture would become a memorable moment in the film. 19. Abandoned sequel plans. Early ideas for a sequel revolved around reuniting the Delta Tau Chi brothers in The Summer of Love, circa 1967, a concept that promised a blend of freewheeling 60s counterculture and the Delta's trademark antics. Writers envisioned a scenario in which the gang would gather for Otter's wedding, plunging them into a new series of misadventures against the vibrant, chaotic backdrop of the hippie era. Fans were more than intrigued by the idea, with rumors of a second film popping up in magazine articles and late-night TV chatter. After all, if Animal House could turn toga parties into a national craze, what kind of cultural shockwaves would a sequel set in the swinging 60s create? However, the box office flop of More American Graffiti dampened the studio's excitement. Released in 1979, that film attempted to revisit beloved characters in a similarly nostalgic decade-spanning setting, but it failed to capture the same magic as the original. Universal executives worried that audiences had grown weary of returning to the past, and they were especially cautious about investing in any Animal House follow-up that might suffer a similar fate. To complicate matters further, the creative team behind Animal House was never fully united on the sequel's direction. There were concerns about whether revisiting these famously irreverent characters in a different social climate would do justice to the original's sharp comedic edge. Then, the tragic death of John Belushi in 1982 dealt the final blow to any lingering sequel hopes. Belushi's portrayal of Blutarsky was integral to the first film's charm, and many fans insisted that Animal House simply wouldn't work without him. The outpouring of grief and respect for Belushi underscored the importance of his presence. He was the chaotic heart of Delta House. Without Belushi, several cast and crew members felt that forging ahead would not only be difficult from a storytelling standpoint but also risk tarnishing the original's legacy. In the end, the idea of a second Animal House joined the ranks of Hollywood's what-if projects, occasionally re-emerging in interviews or fan discussions but never truly coming to fruition. While it's fun to imagine the Deltas in bell-bottoms and flower crowns, perhaps the real success of Animal House lies in the fact that it stands alone, a snapshot of collegiate chaos so perfect that any attempt to recreate it might have felt like a hollow imitation. Instead, the movie remains an unrepeatable classic, forever synonymous with the hilariously unbridled spirit that made it a cultural touchstone in the first place. 20. Elmer Bernstein's dramatic score. John Landis enlisted renowned composer Elmer Bernstein to create the score, due to a childhood friendship with Bernstein's son. Known for epic scores like The Ten Commandments and dramatic works like To Kill a Mockingbird, the studio was initially doubtful but was convinced when Landis instructed Bernstein to compose the score with the same dramatic flair he used for his serious films, creating a humorous juxtaposition between the music and the on-screen antics. 21. The Bluto library scene fiasco. You probably remember Blutarsky sneaking around campus, up to no good as usual. But what many fans don't know is that filming in the University of Oregon's actual library turned into its own little comedy of errors, almost as entertaining as anything on screen. John Belushi, fully committed to his character's chaotic energy, had a notoriously hard time staying quiet between takes. The librarians, who were used to sternly shushing anyone who so much as whispered, found themselves doing double duty, reminding both students and a high-profile film crew that a library is no place for shouting or impromptu dance moves. Still, Belushi being Belushi, he couldn't resist cracking jokes, even when the cameras weren't rolling. Some on set say he mimicked the librarians' hushed tones, exaggerating every shoo, until the crew could hardly keep from laughing. In fact, there were real students trying to study just a few shelves away, unaware that their library had been temporarily hijacked by a Hollywood production. According to one rumor, more than a few librarians had to be convinced, again and again, that the ruckus was all part of the movie-making process. They insisted on near silence to respect the studious environment, which led to hilariously tense moments whenever Belushi tried to rein in his trademark loud humor. Meanwhile, director John Landis reportedly had to tiptoe around the aisles, quietly coordinating scenes so as not to disturb real-life students who were oblivious to the comedic gold unfolding one aisle over. Some of the production staff even attempted to cordon off sections of the library to limit distractions, but dedicated learners still insisted on using their favorite study spots. The result was an odd blend of academic seriousness and film set chaos, actors in costume whispering lines, crew members adjusting lighting with minimal chatter, and an unpredictable Belushi ready to burst into improvised antics at any moment. Interestingly, the decision to shoot in an actual university library instead of a constructed set added a layer of authenticity to Animal House that you can't really fake. It helped solidify the films on a real college campus vibe, even if it gave the librarians a collective headache. In interviews after the film's release, some librarians admitted they'd never had to manage a situation quite like it, seeing Bluto skulking through the stacks, sneaking glances at books he clearly had no intention of reading. Yet, like so many other behind-the-scenes challenges, the tension ended up feeding the cast's camaraderie and comedic timing. Though the library scene itself is relatively brief, the story behind it has become a fun bit of Animal House lore. In a way, it's the perfect snapshot of the film's spirit, taking a traditionally buttoned-up setting, dropping in a force of nature like John Belushi, and letting the sparks fly. If anything, it's testament to how every location, no matter how quiet, was fair game in Animal House's mission to shake up the staid world of college life, one shush at a time. And that's 21 interesting things behind the movie Animal House. If you enjoy this video, give me a like, share and don't forget to subscribe to support us to make more interesting videos.